Moscow, a city that has stood the test of time, enduring countless trials and tribulations. Not just a city, a symbol, a beacon of Russian resilience and strength, the beating heart of Russia. Its streets filled with stories of triumph and tragedy echo the spirit of its people. Since the Tsars, it represented the nation's soul, a place where history and destiny intertwine. Capturing it in 1941, unimaginable. The very thought sent shivers down the spine of every Russian. Yet that was Hitler's gamble. Operation Typhoon, a bold and audacious plan to seize the Soviet capital. A massive assault on the Soviet capital. The German war machine, relentless and powerful, moved with precision and force. The goal: to decapitate the Soviet Union, to break its spirit, to bring the mighty bear to its knees, to win the war in one swift stroke. The Soviets knew this. They understood the stakes. They poured everything into the defense. Millions of men, thousands of tanks. Moscow became a fortress, streets fortified, civilians armed. The entire city a bastion of defiance. Every building a potential strongpoint, every citizen a potential defender. The spirit of Moscow was unbreakable. The fate of the Soviet Union hung in the balance. Could they hold? The world watched with bated breath as the heart of the bear stood firm against the onslaught. Imagine, if you will, the unthinkable. The hammer blow lands. German troops enter Moscow. The city, once a symbol of Soviet strength and resilience, now finds itself under the iron heel of the Nazi war machine. The streets that once echoed with the sounds of daily life are now filled with the heavy march of German boots. The air is thick with tension, fear, and disbelief. How could this have happened? How could the mighty Soviet Union have allowed its capital to fall into enemy hands? Red flags with swastikas flying over the Kremlin. The very heart of Soviet power, now draped in the symbols of its enemy. This image, more than any other, signifies the depth of the catastrophe. The Kremlin, a fortress of Russian history and culture, now stands as a testament to Nazi dominance. The psychological impact on the Soviet people is immeasurable. Their pride, their hope, their very identity seems to be crumbling. The shockwave reverberates across the world. Stalin gone. The news spreads like wildfire, leaving nations in a state of shock and disbelief. Leaders around the globe scramble to understand the implications. What does this mean for the balance of power, for the future of the war, for the fate of millions? The world watches, waits and wonders. The government evacuated in disarray. The Red Army reeling. The once formidable Soviet military machine is now a shadow of its former self. Soldiers, once filled with confidence and determination, now find themselves in a state of confusion and despair. The chain of command is broken and chaos reigns. The evacuation is hurried, disorganized, and fraught with panic. The world holds its breath. Had Hitler done it? Had he achieved the unthinkable? The question lingers in the air, heavy with dread and anticipation. Radios crackle with updates. Newspapers rush to print the latest developments. And people gather in hushed groups, desperate for any scrap of information. The tension is palpable, the uncertainty unbearable. Had the seemingly invincible Nazi war machine crushed the Soviet Union in a single campaign? The Blitzkrieg, a strategy of rapid and overwhelming force, had proven devastatingly effective. The world had watched in horror as nation after nation fell before the German onslaught. Now, it seemed, the Soviet Union was next in line. The implications were staggering. If Moscow could fall, what hope was there for the rest of the world? The initial impact is undeniable. The Soviets are reeling. The once proud and defiant Red Army is now in full retreat. Soldiers, their spirits broken, flee before the advancing German forces. The battlefield is littered with the remnants of a shattered army. The sense of defeat is overwhelming, the loss incalculable. Their leadership is in chaos. Their armies are shattered. The Soviet command structure, once a model of efficiency and discipline, is now in disarray. Orders are confused, strategies are abandoned, and the once unbreakable will of the Soviet leadership is now fractured. The sense of hopelessness is pervasive. The loss of Moscow, the heart of their nation, is a psychological blow like no other. The city, with its rich history and cultural significance, is now a symbol of Soviet failure. The impact on the Soviet psyche is profound. The people, once filled with pride and determination, now face an uncertain future. The fall of Moscow is not just a military defeat, it is a blow to the very soul of the Soviet Union. Morale, the unseen factor in war, and in the Soviet Union it is plummeting, the loss of Moscow, the seemingly unstoppable German advance, millions dead, millions more fleeing east. The sheer scale of the catastrophe is difficult to comprehend, yet the Soviets are resilient. For centuries they've endured hardship, invasion, famine. Their spirit is not easily broken, and they have something the Germans underestimate: a burning hatred for the invaders, fueled by Nazi atrocities. In Berlin, euphoria. Goebbels' propaganda machine goes into overdrive. Moscow has fallen. The East will soon be theirs. The Führer has triumphed again. The German people, exhausted but exhilarated, dare to believe. Is this the end? The Wehrmacht basks in its victory. They have conquered most of Europe. Now the crown jewel, Moscow. They believe the Soviets are finished. But within the high command, a seed of doubt is sown. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Section 5. A city under siege holding Moscow. Holding Moscow is a double-edged sword. It's a propaganda victory, yes, but it's also a logistical nightmare. The city is vast, the outskirts sprawling, perfect for defense. The Germans are overextended, their supply lines stretched thin, and the Russians, they fight back from the shadows. Snipers, sabotage, a constant drain on German resources. Winter descends. The German army, unprepared for the Russian winter, begins to freeze. The very city they captured becomes a trap. Section 6. The bear awakens, regrouping beyond the Urals. East of Moscow, a different story unfolds. The Soviet bear, wounded but not dead, stirs. Beyond the Ural Mountains, a vast industrial powerhouse churns. Factories relocated, production ramping up. Tanks, planes, guns, all flowing west. Stalin, his initial shock overcome, rallies the nation. He finds his voice again. His words, broadcast across the airwaves, are a call to arms. He promises victory, he promises revenge, and slowly the tide begins to turn. Section 7. The tide turns Soviet counteroffensives. The counterattack, when it comes, is fierce. Freshly equipped divisions, hardened by months of training, slam into the overstretched German lines. The winter, once their enemy, now their ally. The Germans, outmanned, outgunned and freezing, are pushed back. The capture of Moscow, once a symbol of German might, becomes a liability. The Soviets, fueled by patriotism and rage, fight with a ferocity that surprises the invaders. The myth of German invincibility is shattered. Section 8. A war of attrition, the limits of German power. The war grinds on, a brutal war of attrition. But the Germans are fighting on two fronts, their resources stretched thin, their manpower dwindling. The capture of Moscow has not broken the Soviet Union. It has only strengthened their resolve. The vastness of the Soviet Union, once a logistical nightmare for the invaders, becomes their greatest asset. They can trade land for time. And time is something the Germans do not have. Section 9. No final victory, the inevitable outcome, the fall of Moscow, a turning point. Many historians have debated this question over the years. The capture of Moscow was seen by Hitler as a crucial step in his plan to dominate Europe. The German High Command believed that taking the Soviet capital would break the back of the Soviet Union, leading to its collapse. But history tells a different story, perhaps. But not in the way Hitler envisioned. Hitler's grand strategy was built on quick, decisive victories, a blitzkrieg that would overwhelm his enemies before they could mount a significant defense. However, the Eastern Front proved to be a different beast altogether. It is a Pyrrhic victory. The German forces, though initially successful, found themselves stretched thin and unprepared for the harsh Russian winter. Their supply lines were overextended, and their troops were ill-equipped for the severe conditions they faced. A victory that sows the seeds of its own defeat. The initial triumphs of the German army were overshadowed by the immense logistical challenges and the fierce Soviet resistance. The Wehrmacht's advance slowed, and the brutal winter took a heavy toll on both men and machines. The German army bogged down in a war it cannot win. The dream of a quick victory evaporated as the reality of a prolonged conflict set in. The harsh winter conditions, coupled with the relentless Soviet counterattacks, turned the tide against the invaders. The Soviet Union revitalized, its people united in their hatred of the occupier. The Soviet leadership under Stalin managed to rally the nation, turning the invasion into a patriotic war for survival. The resilience and determination of the Soviet people played a crucial role in the eventual defeat of the German forces. No, the capture of Moscow, while a significant event, would not have guaranteed German victory in World War II. The vast expanse of the Soviet Union and the depth of its resources meant that even the fall of its capital would not spell immediate defeat. The factors that ultimately led to the Allied victory, Soviet resilience, American industrial might, the two-front war, would still have come into play. The combined efforts of the Allies, each contributing in their own way, created an insurmountable force that the Axis powers could not withstand. The capture of Moscow might have prolonged the conflict, but the ultimate outcome would have remained the same. The sheer scale of the war, the vast resources of the Allies, and the strategic blunders of the Axis ensured that the end was inevitable. The Nazi regime, built on hate and conquest, was destined to crumble. Its foundations were inherently unstable, and its aggressive expansionism only hastened its downfall. In the end, the principles of justice and humanity prevailed, leading to the downfall of one of history's most tyrannical regimes.